Hey guys, you want to find out how I start up my Lee Pro 1000 for 9mm? Stay tuned and find out. Hey guys, welcome back to Ring Still TV. We are back here at the bench, and today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and start up this Lee Pro 1000, and I'm going to show you guys how I start up this machine to start doing bulk reloading for 9mm. In the last couple of videos, I showed you guys my Lee app press. I bought that press specifically to do all my case prep work for 9mm prior to running it through the 1000. I'll put a couple videos here, but basically it includes decapping. I'll decap all the brass, and then I'll run all that brass through a wet tumble process. And after I'm done with the wet tumble process and have dried everything, then I'll come back and I'll bulge bust on the Lee app press. And once the cases are bulge busted, they're basically ready to go into the Lee Pro 1000. And that's where we pick up today. So what I'd like to do is just show you guys how I get this machine set up and what I've learned, over time on this particular press. This video today assumes that you have already set up the press. Just follow the directions for setting up the die and the bullet seeder and the powder drop. There's nothing you need to do different than what the instructions say on it. But I did want to go through the startup process that I use. Every time I sit down to do this press and do a lot of ammo, I like to go through a startup process, and that just helps me kind of get everything moving. So anyway, we'll get started with that. So guys, the first thing that I do when I sit down to start this press up is I just kind of check it for function. I'll cycle it, and what I'm looking for is to ensure that the bullet feeder is coming out and it's going back, that the shell plate carrier down here is rotating to the correct spot, and that I can see the primer pin coming up through the back there. All I'm doing is just making sure that that's working, especially if I haven't used it in a while. Once I've done that, then the next thing I'll do is I'll kind of get set up with the powder. In this case, and I generally always use this tight group, I'll just go ahead and fill up the powder hopper here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the powder hopper. And now that the powder hopper's on, what I want to do is I want to cycle the powder through it so it's dropping consistently. The last shell from the previous run, I usually just keep in my bullet box here. You see here all my bullets here in this box. I just keep the last shell. It's got a primer in it, and that's what I'll use to kind of start the process of this whole deal. So what I'll do is I'll put the shell into the shell plate carrier. I'll move it into the powder position, and then I'm going to just drop powder into it. And what I'm trying to do here is just get it dropping consistently. So I'll put that shell in there, I'll move it into the powder position, and I'll do this 10 times. And there it goes, it's dropped. That's 2. I'll pull it out, and I'll do this 10 times. So guys, after I've dropped 10 drops in here, the powder should be dropping pretty consistently now at this point. And what I want to do is I want to actually weigh the powder that's coming out. I'm looking for 4 grains of powder, or about anywhere from 3.7 to 4.41, somewhere in there. I'm running 124 grain round nose bullets, and so that's generally where I like to be at. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll turn on my scale. And then I'll calibrate it. It's asking for 100-gram weights, so I'll drop those on there, and I'll wait for it to say pass. There we go. And then now what we'll do is we'll remove those weights. Should be at 0. I'll drop my empty cartridge on there, 62.1. We'll tear it to 0. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop some powder in this. I'll do it 3 or 4 times probably and just see kind of what it's doing. That is 3.8. And that is 3.8. And that is 3.8. So it's consistently throwing 3.8. So I feel pretty good about that. We'll move on to the next step. Okay, guys, now that I've validated that the press is dropping the powder in the charge weights that I want, I'll go ahead and now test and make sure that the bullet feeder is doing what it needs to do. So I'm going to load this back up into the powder spot. I've let some powder into it, and now I'm going to drop one bullet into the tube. And then we're going to make sure that the bullet feeder is working. And it is. We got a good bullet there. And now all I'm going to do is just going to come in here and measure it. For me, I like these to be right at about 1.15. And you can see here that's 1.148. So that's good. These, depending on how the bullet's manufactured, they'll vary just a little bit. So that's good enough for me to get started. I'll do several of these and test it and see if I need to make a slight adjustment to it. So now we've confirmed that the powder is dropping correctly and the bullets are feeding correctly. Now we can kind of get this machine loaded up. So we'll move on to that step. All right, guys, so the next piece for me will be to get this primer tube chute loaded up. What I like to do is I always keep some, it's about 18 or 19 primers that I keep to the side. And what I want to do is I want to fill this chute up. And that chute should always be full. Like, you don't want that to go down. And I always work in groups of 100. So I'll load 100 cases, I'll load 100 bullets, and I'll load 100 primers. And I know that if I do that, then the whole machine will end at 100, and each of the tubes will have 25 rounds in it, and everything will end at the same time. So I never have to worry about this primer chute running out of primers. If this chute gets low on primers, it will not feed the primers properly, and you'll have a ton of trouble. So it's important that this chute is completely full. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fill up the chute with the 18 primers. And so I've got some here that I just keep to the side specifically for this. After my last run, I'll go back and I'll put these 18 primers, the last 18 to the side, or 19, whatever it happens to be. And then I always just start with these 18. So let me get that going and I'll be right back. All right, guys, now what we're going to do is we're going to put those 18 in there. What you want to do here, and it might be hard for me to show you, but you need to put a little Allen key or Allen wrench on the end of this deal right here, so that when the primers are at the bottom of the tray, they don't just come out of that chute. And then you want to line that up and get that in there. So I'm going to attempt to do this with you guys on here. Okay, and now when I release this, those will start going down into the tray. So I've got it in there, and you can see the tray filling up. And there you go, the tray's completely full with primers. And my primer tray is empty now. So now my chute's full, and now is the time where I want to take this tray off, and I'll go load 100 into this deal. So let me fill this up with 100, and then we'll put this on there. All right, guys, so now I have 100 rounds in my tray, and what I'll do is the same thing. I'll use a little Allen wrench to keep them from falling out, and then I'll drop this into the chute, and then I'll release it. And now I've got 100 rounds ready to go. So same thing, what I was mentioning is once I do 100 rounds, there'll still be enough of them inside the chute, so I don't have to worry about whether or not they came out of the chute or not. So that's how I load the primer tray. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and load up the case feed tube and the bullet feed tube. So I'll show you that process next. All right, guys, here's the case feed tube on the front here, and those of you that have used this before, you rotate it into the next position. It's got a little indent where it'll stop, and then the cases will drop down onto the pusher that pushes it onto the shell plate carrier. What I like to do is take this and turn it to the half location, so it's not in the, right there's the indent. I'm going to turn it to the half location. And the reason for that is if you have it in the location where it drops the tubes all the way down, you're actually going to load more shells into that tube that's in the position that goes all the way down. This way, if I put it in the half position, I know I'm going to get 25 rounds in each of these exactly. So the way my machine is set up, when I fill these tubes up using the case collator, it loads exactly 25 rounds. So I'll quickly show you guys that next. All right, guys, so all we need to do now is just put some brass inside the collator here at the top, and we'll give it a little shake, and those will all drop down. And I want to do this until these are all filled up. All 4 tubes are filled up. All right, all 4 tubes are filled up now. And what I want to do next is load up the bullet feed tube. So I'll show you that step next. Guys, now we're going to load up the bullet feed tubes on my bullet feeder. Same thing as the cases. You actually don't want this, it turns just like the other to drop them down. You want this at the half mark so the bullets don't fall all the way down to the bottom into the feeder jaws. That way you can load exactly 25 into each of these bullets. And I'll show you what I've done here. Give me 1 second. Let me get the camera into a good position. Better position here. So you see these are the bullet feed tubes here, and we need to fill these up with the bullets. If you'll notice up at the very top here, I've got a little a zip tie, and that lets me know how far to load these bullets up. Once the bullet reaches that line, then I know I've got 25 in each of these tubes. So let me fill that up for you real quick. All right, guys, so where we're at right now is we have validated the powder is dropping the correct grains. Anywhere from 3.8 to 4.1 is generally where I go with this particular deal with Tight Group. I have loaded all the bullets tubes are loaded up with exactly 125 per deal. My case tubes are all loaded up, and I've got exactly 125 per tube in there. My primer tray is loaded up with, it was a total of 118 primers, 100 for this round, and then 18 to ensure that the primer chute stays full for when I do the next load. So I think at this point we're ready to start going. We're ready to start it up. So I'll get you a little closer to this deal, and I'll show you this thing running. All right, guys, we're ready to get moving here. So again, everything's loaded up. It's ready to go. The first thing I want to do is drop my shells onto the pusher that pushes it onto the shell plate, and it's move the next one into position. We do not want to start the bullets until we get these around. So what it's doing right now is the first one's going into the shell plate. That's going up and getting resized inside the resizing die. I don't have any primers in here, so it is not decapping because I decapped that in a different process. It's moving it into the primer position, and I push forward on it to feel that a primer's loading in there, which it did. And then now it's going to go up into the powder drop. The powder drop is going. Now it's moved into the next position for the bullets. This is the point that I'm going to turn the bullets on. And you'll see a bullet kind of pop out. And there we go. And we'll just keep going here. What I want to do is I'm always keeping my eyes on two things. I'm keeping my eyes on the primer chute to ensure that the primers are going down in here and haven't gotten caught in this section. And the other thing is I'm doing is ensuring that a bullet is coming off of each one of these here. Okay, you can see I've done 25 rounds. We're out of bullets here, no longer dropping down, and all the shells are off the plate. This is the time I'll just look everything over and ensure everything's good. If everything's good and it's functioning the way it should be, then I'll rotate this and drop some more cases in it. And then we'll go ahead and get these lined up again to the bullet feeder section. Okay, you can see this shell's ready for a bullet, and now I'll drop the bullets. And here we go again. We'll start the next 25. All right, guys, I'm going to stop right there. I'll go ahead and finish up these 100. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of instruction to see how I do this 9mm. Since we already did the app press and I showed you what those cases look like coming out of there with the decapping and the bulge busting, the wet tumbling. Now I just wanted to show you my entire process. When I start this machine up, I'll generally do anywhere from 500 to 1,000 rounds. It only takes maybe a few hours to do that. It's a pretty fast process. The worst part of the whole thing is probably just loading up those bullet tubes. I wish there was a faster way to do it. And some people say, you know, it's not even worth it. Just go ahead and drop the bullet on top of the case when you do this, and don't even use the bullet feeder. I do find it faster. How much faster? You know, I don't really think it's that much faster, but it's easier for me to see what's going on the machine if that bullet feeder is going. I've also heard a lot of people have trouble with that bullet feeder. I've not had a lick of trouble out of it. Once it's set up and working right, it's really bulletproof. I've not had any issues with it. I think the main things to keep in mind on this press is, one, cleanliness is godliness when it comes to this machine. You do not want to use any oils or anything on here. I will use dry lube in the carrier tray when I'm setting this machine up. I keep this machine really clean. After I'm done with it, I will blow it out with air, and about every 1,000 rounds, I'll actually take the carrier plate assembly apart and clean it out if any powder's gotten down in there. But it's super important this machine stay clean, and if you're going to keep it clean anywhere, it needs to be in this primer chute area. This primer chute needs to be clean, and you have to keep primers in here. If this thing starts to get low on primers, there's not enough weight to push it up into the next spot. So you have to keep the primers moving. You have to keep the machine clean. And the other thing that I'll say is, if you do everything in batches of 100, 25 per tube on each of these, your life will be a lot easier than trying to, because you can actually load, like, I think it's 35 or 30 or so bullets in one of these tubes. Well, once it starts getting out of sync with your brass, then it's harder, because then you got to see, oh, am I running out over here? Am I running out over here? This way, when I rotate this tube to drop 25, I know I rotate this tube over here to drop another 25 bullets. I know I've got 100 primers in that deal, and I can just go through all of these. And then after every 100, I'll reload it up, and then I'll do another 100, and we'll just do that over and over again until I get 500 or 1,000 of these done. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, happy shooting.